Hello, everyone. Today is July 7th, 2021. I'm here with Thomas O'Neill. Thomas is the author of the Betelgeuse Sah Paradox. Mankind came from a dying star system, an ex-systems engineer, and an ex-lifeguard. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Tom.
Hi, yeah, it's a pleasure, Karush.
So, you authored the book, The Betelgeuse Sah Paradox. What
Yes.
is what is this Betelgeuse Sah Paradox?
Well, in short, I came to the conclusion that the high technology based in Egypt and around the world, some of these artifacts that have been manufactured that seem to defy explanation back in time, and also the megalithic structures such as pyramids and the Mayan culture and the Giza Plateau, the Khufu Pyramid, which is the Great Pyramid, and some other megalithic structures from the past. The technology that is so advanced that it defies explanation, and the tools that made these megalithic structures are missing. I do not believe they were made from crude copper tools. And I believe there is an extraterrestrial involvement within the history line of mankind within these megalithic structures.
What types of technology are do you think were involved with these structures?
Well, if you look into the Egyptian record, there are the stone bowls and jars that Petrie discusses that have tolerances that look as though a lathe was used. The Great Pyramid, I theorize, and also Christopher Dunn, who's a machinist for 50 years in the aerospace industry, has wrote a book called the Giza Power Plant that it was actually a power plant. And within my book, I looked at the alien niche, the glyphs. There's a glyph on the entrance to the Great Pyramid that has four glyphs. And I came to the conclusion after looking and decoding it that it's a mere power conversion mathematical equation. And so what it came out to be was about 2,000 megawatts. And so with his background and other people who have posted hard evidence that pyramids can uh, create free energy, that the pyramid was an energy device. And there's the dendrolite within ancient Egypt reliefs. A relief is where they chisel in on the walls the hieroglyphics and pictures and images. And so there's a dendrite light bulb which has a capacitor on the image. And so people have theorized that was an actual light bulb. So uh, I believe that some of these bowls and stone boxes and the busts of Ramses and some flared columns. And well, these boxes from Saqqara, there's 100 tons. They're just, the tolerances are amazing, and they have striations on them. Striations are tiny grooves that looks like a machine was, utilized to manufacture these artifacts, as well as the boreholes that are found all over Egypt. So
What's a borehole?
a borehole is a circular hole, very, very round, and you put a drill bit into it, and this was done, I think, 10,000 BC, 10,500 BC. I don't go by the 4,500 uh, timeline that Egyptologists say that it was done with crude copper tools. A borehole is a circular hole done with a machine, like either a lathe or a drill bit, and they have striations within the hole, and there's cores that are pulled out from the drill bit, and around the circular circumference of the core are small striations within a millimeter of tolerances within a 100,000th of an inch, and you can see the lines if you use under a microscope or a magnifying glass, I think. And it's evidence of machining. Therefore, if there's evidence of machining, there's evidence of electricity, machines. However, they have not found any of the machines or the tools. Therefore, that implies an extraterrestrial race of beings that were highly advanced that came here, who helped build and manufacture all these artifacts into the ancient Egypt, and some of these other pyramids, which in Mexico, and all these megalithic structures, which I theorize in my book, and you will see. So that's just from that, and I updated my book just lately with the technology. I put that in there. So, and it all correlates with Orion. Betelgeuse is a star, which I found 3 calculations from the Great Pyramid. From the height of the pyramid, number of blocks, and the actual meter of a cubit. If you take the decimal fraction of a meter converted to a cubit and you multiply these equations, I've got 3 calculations. One is in distance in light years to the Betelgeuse star, the diameter of the star, and the age of the star, just from the calculations of the Great Pyramid, which is the Khufu Pyramid. And I look at that, and that cannot be a coincidence. So the technology, that must have been in mind of the architects who are building the pyramid. They're leaving a message behind, and this is what my book is about. It's about a grand message with the serpent, with the fall of man, and that I came to this conclusion not only from those calculations, but the megalithic structures like Stonehenge, Göbekli Tepe, the Chichen Itza, the pyramid in Mexico, the Great Pyramid, Khufu. These pyramids that are in my book, and the Serpent Mound in Ohio works in tandem with Stonehenge. And it works with the serpent. And if you look at the astrolabe of the stars, Orion is always involved with the serpent in conjunction with these spring equinoxes or autumn equinoxes or summer solstice. It's always on spot. Orion is mid-heavens, either in the day or at night, or it's on in one particular case, Orion is rising with the sun. When the sun is on the rise in the summer solstice, it is shining at midpoint in Stonehenge from the heel stone. Simultaneously, the serpent constellation is over Serpent Mound, which is a giant serpent, looks like it's swallowing a planet. And so I make the correlation that that this has to do with something with the fall of man, because the serpent was obviously in the Garden of Eden, where mankind was deceived through Eve at first from the apple of the tree, and Satan, who is God's greatest adversary, the fall of man. But I think I rethought the whole thing, and I think we were biologically engineered from an ape and part angel, because I know I'm going on. Would you like me to pause right now? You have another question, or keep going?
No, you can continue.
Okay. So at that point about the Adam and Eve creation story, the cuneiform has a story of multiple beings creating Adam and Eve, and even in the King James Bible, it has multiple beings creating Adam and Eve, or Adam, I should say, for the first human being, Adam, because in the first line it says, "Let us create man." In King James Bible, "Let us," and then in the cuneiform, which is the oldest form of writing, it talks about Enki and his sister creating a man. So I'm going, God would never need an us to create a human being. He never created. He is infinite being that created everything from the start by himself. He's infinite, and so he never needed an us. So that tells me in the Bible that perhaps, and since man is a fallen being according to the Bible, that the story God takes responsibility because he has these fallen angels that he's contending with, 1/3 of them. I think that we were genetically, since we have a close relationship to the chimpanzee or apes, we have our genetics is so close, and there's a missing link as well. We have hair on our bodies, but we also have skin and an intellect, and we have this like war going on where we're really genuine, empathetic, kind human beings, but we can be so cruel and animalistic at the same time. And I've noticed by looking at the races, even the races of beings, is like I can almost see that we have this like inner ape in us. It's just like, and so I think we're genetically engineered on this planet of Eden. And 3.2 to 4 million years ago, that's when Betelgeuse began its expansion from about 6 million, give or take, kilometers in diameter to about 617 million, give or take, kilometers in diameter. And within that period of 3.2 to 4 million years, when it started, if the planet was like ours, Planet Eden, I'm surmising, which I call as a different planet. The Garden of Eden, I in my book, I state is a different planet. If it had ice caps and stuff like that, it would have began to melt and flood. The reason why I don't think Earth had a flood as big as that is the flood would have been sustained. If a planet would have been flooded, it would have kept the water there. So it would have just receded. The flood that massive would stay. So I believe it happened on another planet and as an escape route. And since man and the test of the tree of knowledge was the real God's test to see how this genetically engineered man, which was Adam and Eve, how they respond to what God would want them to not eat from the tree of knowledge. There was the tree of life, but obviously Satan stepped back in and deceived and ate from the tree. And then there was this whole persecution up until the flood of these angels on Eden, in the planet Eden, where they were just being maligned and everything. So this flood just happened. Now that would naturally occur, of course, because of given the state at that time, but maybe Satan had that place where he did it. He put it there, and it happened. But God formulated a plan, and maybe he said to the lowest ranking angels, who are now the grays that are now malformed, because maybe that's sort of a punishment because they've been abducting humans. But at the time, I think he said he may have forgave them if they transported us to Earth, which is about 535 light years away, which is a calculation from the pyramid that I've came up with, which is, you'll see in the book. You take 8 sides of the pyramid, which the Khufu pyramid actually is an 8-sided pyramid, times the cubit, which is measured in meters, times the height of the pyramid, 146.5 meters. If it was with its perimeter, if it had its cap on it, something like that is 535 light years, point something. So, yeah. And so and we have this skin, but we have this hair, and there's this inner struggle within man. We were transported here. The technology is obvious in the pyramids. We have these magnificent megalithic structures. I have these astrolabes and these stars, and Orion has been getting attention since 17,000 years ago in these caves. They were artists, and it looks like there's a rendering of a gray in my book, which I show from these caves in France, of a face of a gray. And then the next image is the bull with Taurus, and it has Pleiades, and then it has the Orion constellation. And so Orion has had this attention for ever since it seems like man has been here. And that message could have been left with us when we were dropped off here. Now, all the animals were dropped off here. The different species of apes were dropped off here. And that's why Lucy is here, you know, and that's why and who knows, there may have been animals here as well when we got here. I don't know. You know, I don't know everything. So that's a speculation. I don't want to speculate on that. But I'm trying to understand, you know, why this technology was at Egypt and how the tools are missing and how they, you know, did it, and why would this calculation be put into this pyramid, you know? And so that's why I came up with this book. And so the Orion is absolutely, it gets so much attention all the time, and it's in religion, it's in the Bible, it's in myths, it's in astronomy. It seems like and now if you in the winter months, when you look up at the sky, and if you go into, say, a place with absolutely no light from a city, the stars will be much crisper and brighter, and you can see Orion, and you can almost make out a human figure. The reason it gets so much attention, I believe, was it was probably sent message to us in the past, and they drew cave art, and then people look at it. They can see it. There's a red star there. It's on the shoulder. That's Betelgeuse. That's a red supergiant. And then the belt stars, the 3 belt stars, which the 3 belt stars, the pyramids seem to line up with that as well, from the Baval, Graham Hancock ideas about, mostly Baval, that the Orion mystery. And not only that, Osiris is known as a Egyptian god who supposedly died in a flood, or was killed by another Egyptian god. But they also say he died in a flood. And Osiris is correlated to our. I think it could also be metaphorically saying that, you know, a flood occurred in a planet, you know, in the Orion constellation. So anyway, that was long-winded explanation.
Wow. Well, it was very, you know, detailed, and it's a complicated subject. And so what made you think to take calculations of those parameters of the pyramid?
That's a very good question. I was studying the pyramid, and I thought, why not just do? I like numbers and math, and for the longest time I was working with prime numbers, Mersenne prime numbers, trying to get the world record for the longest prime number in the world, and, you know, working with Python, a programming language I like to play with sometimes, and I was trying to solve the equation for that. But that never, and so I took a couple times for a couple months trying to solve a Mersenne prime number. A Mersenne prime number is a prime number like 3 or 7 or 31. Now 11 is not a Mersenne prime number, neither is 29, because if you take anyway, these calculations, I was playing with numbers, and I just happened to multiply them together, and then I noticed something when I was multiplying the cubit down to the meter with 8 sides, that the number 535 came up, and I was just at the same time researching Betelgeuse, and some say Betelgeuse is 640 light years. Then they did a 25% less rough estimation after the star dimmed. They re-looked at it, aligned the star and that from its size, and they said, well, it is 530 light years. And so when I saw 535, I go, wow. After I multiplied these 3 numbers together, then I multiplied 3 other numbers together, and I got 1.2 billion kilometers, or a number that was 1.2 billion something, that was very close to, which is 1.2 billion kilometers, which is the diameter of Betelgeuse. In fact, the calculation that I do is only about 1.5 million off from the calculation that the humans have calculated, which, and by the way, all these calculations that humans do of stars are approximations. They're not spot on. No one can spot on it. And so, for all I know, it is quite possible that these calculations from the pyramid, from the Great Pyramid to Betelgeuse, from the height of the pyramid, the number of blocks, 2.3 million blocks, to the cubit, which is measured within the meter, to 8 sides. These calculations may be spot on, or it could be another. It's always an approximation because stars vary. You know what I'm saying? As they get older, of course they do. But that could have been a spot on calculation at the time when the architects of the pyramids were putting that in there. 3 calculations: the age of the star, the distance of the star, and its diameter, and it all relates to Betelgeuse within that close of a range. Now, how is that? And it's the Great Pyramid, and also that these 3 pyramids, Minotaur, Menkaure, Khafre, and Khufu, they all line up with the belt stars of Orion, and then you have that calculation that equals Betelgeuse. That doesn't seem like a coincidence to me. That seems like it's purposely driven. Not to mention that the Great Pyramid is supposed to be aligned almost perfectly to polar north or magnetic north, and that the Great Pyramid is supposedly placed perfectly within the most of the landmass on the planet. And there's some other measurements that it's like almost on perfect latitude. So these calculations were not done by people who, Neolithic time cavemen, were working with copper tools. There is an intelligence put into this pyramid. There is a higher intelligence, an advanced intelligence. This was planned. This was not done haphazardly by a bunch of people who had copper tools and just coming out of the caveman era, the Neolithic era, and then they got together. No, there's definitely an extraterrestrial involvement here. And so seeing that, and then seeing that calculation, I assume, and then seeing how humans are with the hair and all that, and then seeing how the Orion is built in these megalithic structures such as Stonehenge. Chichen Itza has a serpent that on the spring equinox at 4:35 or 4:30 in the afternoon, a serpent shadow comes down on the pyramid because there's a serpent head at the bottom, a giant stone serpent head, and at the side, if you look at it, the angles from the step pyramid produces a shadow at the spring equinox onto it. It looks like a snake. And at the same time, Orion is mid-heavens during the day. And so it's telling us something. That there's no way that the linear progression of technology that mankind would have done it from caveman days to create that pyramid. So an extraterrestrial made it. They're telling us that mankind's fallen nature from the Garden of Eden was descended from Orion. And that's just another message, you know, besides the pyramid saying that Betelgeuse. So I got all these messages and I put them together in the book, not only from the technology that's in Egypt, but UFO, ancient alien coincidences like the Thule papyrus, the cave art in India. The Roman Republic has an article about alien involvement or a UFO apparition. There's dozens of, throughout history, there's just, you know, there's the Roswell incident, there's the tic-tac-toe UFO within the Navy. These beings are so advanced right now because imagine what they had to transport us here, which I estimated either took 1,000 light years. They traveled half the speed of light or to get here, so it took them 1,000 years to transport mankind here, which we were probably put in cryogenesis, meaning we were frozen in a special way where our heartbeats were lowered so that we wouldn't age. And by the time we got here, they kicked us up and then they put us on the planet. But what I'm saying is, this story. Oh, I'm getting lost. This is so complicated what I'm talking about, Karush, and all you people out there. Um, where was I at, Karush?
You were at Rays transporting back humans.
Yeah, and I think I was talking about the megalithic structures too, as well.
Yes. Yes, you were.
Yeah.
Talking about megalithic structures and their alignment with Orion and
Yes.
Betelgeuse.
Yeah, and then there's the three pyramids that align as well. I just got lost in that. Um, might be. Let me get some water. I'll be right back. Is that okay if I get some water?
That's okay.
Okay. Oh, okay. Going back to the alien UFO agenda, where the tic-tac-toe UFO in the Navy, um, in 2014, the U.S. Nimitz south of San Diego reported seeing a tic tac. You know, if you ever have a tic tac, you put it in your mouth. It's white and it's looks like a oblong object. That type of object was 40 feet long, out in just off of San Diego, about 60 to 100 miles, and descended from 80,000 feet to 20,000 feet. Went into the water, had no signature, no rudders, nothing. Had an anti-gravity device, could turn on a dime, do any kind of twists and turns, and it's been reported by the Navy and their radar and how they capture images while they're chasing other objects. And so, what I'm saying is, these aliens, these extraterrestrials, are so advanced now that we're like our minds and our intellect and our intelligence. We're like dogs. We're like little puppy dogs. If I can try to equate the intelligence level, and and they're like Einstein. So imagine a dog trying to comprehend what Einstein does, you know. So that's us compared to the Greys. And so by now they're so stealth, they figured out so much technology. If they can come within light years, 4 million years ago in transport here, they have so much technology that they're probably stealth. They probably invented invisible cloaks by now. And they've got anti-gravity drones, AI drones. I think what they're doing is they're monitoring Earth with drones that are artificial intelligence, because no one can survive the G forces that these craft do. Turn on a dime, go about 2,700 miles per hour this way and that way and this way inside of our environment. Uh, and so the question is, how come they haven't revealed themselves? Why is it always a mystery, you know? And why do we have so many like just faint? Why can't we see them? Is because they're so advanced. And I believe that there have been some secret evidence within the highest forms of government. They know they're here because we've had reports where our nuclear silos have been turned off and messed with, our missile commands, you know, and they're monitoring us. And we haven't had a nuclear explosion. We've had an accident, you know, Chernobyl, but we haven't had people dropping nuclear bombs on each other since World War II. And if it's not a coincidence, but in 1947, that's when we had the Roswell incident, which the Holloman Air Force Base is in New Mexico. And there was something going on with Eisenhower during that time and Majestic 12, and they formed Project Blue Book. So, yeah, I cannot categorically say that aliens do not exist, extraterrestrials do not exist. There's just too much evidence that they do exist from the history timeline, from witnessing it to like this technology, you know. And so and why would this pyramid have the three calculations of the Betelgeuse star, the Orion alignments, and then all these megalithic structures, not from Göbekli Tap to Stonehenge with the serpent? It's like they're sending us a message, you know. And then I've heard from doctors and some other scientists, some other people, it's very rare, but someone else wrote a book or something, some other author saying that we haven't come, we don't originate from this planet, because look at all our medical illnesses we have. It's like, this is not an ideal place because we all suffer from medical illnesses. Well, of course, since the fall of man, we do die, but it's just like cancer, skin cancer. It's like, this place is not ideal. We go outside and get skin cancer, we get burned. It's like we're not designed. So maybe the atmosphere here is not the right atmosphere. Maybe on Eden it was like perfect. Maybe like it said, it had a cloudy atmosphere, like the waters, and it was perfect. But here it's not. You know, it had like a watery atmosphere, and
It's
something to think about.
yeah, it is something to think about, definitely. When do you think humans? So you think that the Betelgeuse star got too large around 3 million years ago?
About 3.2 to 4 million years ago. It right now it's about 8.4 million years old, and it's within the range of, they say it could tomorrow we could wake up and there could be a full moon in the sky in the evening, or in the day we can see it shine. Depends on what time of the year. Like in the daytime, Betelgeuse is in our window. In the wintertime, it's in our window. In the evening, so it would shine like a bright moon. So it could go off either today or within 100,000 years from now. It's 8.4 million years old. So if you cut that in half, and I looked online and I looked at some calculations about how a star is, how it scales. And the super red giant, it took it 4 million years to scale at its present size right now. It bloomed because it blew up due to its burning its hydrogen out down to its helium. Some people have suggested that now it's burning its helium because it has just dimmed. And some were even saying, well, it could go supernova. And so if it did go say that big full moon just happened and popped in the sky and it's Betelgeuse, then that means 535 years ago it just blew up, and now we're just seeing it, you know, because it takes time for us to see things due to light, the speed of light, and it's that far away. So the age, I'm assuming is, I'm not assuming because I've done the calculation, is it's between 3.2 to 4 million years ago, I believe, that the star started to expand. And there is even proof that there was another star or some other planets that were orbiting around Betelgeuse during that time, but when it expanded, it gobbled it up. It ate those other masses, because they've seen on the side, and they've seen matter in the star. It looks odd. Some astrophysicists and cosmologists have looked at it. It's in print material on the internet.
Oh, wow. So then there's actual matter that would probably be a planet within the star because it's expanded so far in the last
Yeah.
3.2 to 4 billion years.
Well, they have proof that it gobbled up another star, and so I wouldn't doubt that part of the other matter is also another planet.
It gobbled up another star.
Yeah, it was a binary star system. I've
Oh,
looked
wow.
on.
And
Yeah.
you bring up the binary star system in your book too, don't you?
Yeah, yes, I do in the beginning. Yeah.
What do you speak towards that about?
Well, in Genesis, it regards the beginning of, there's two, a lesser light and a greater light for the evening and the day. So it doesn't mention moon or sun, which is, I find, kind of odd. Why not just say, call it sun and moon? But it just says a lesser light and a greater light. So I looked at that and I thought, wow. And then I did some research. Was Betelgeuse a binary star system, meaning binary meaning two? And then I found, yes, there was. So, well, if it was a lesser light and a greater light, maybe it was a lesser star, lesser size of a star that shined from a distance, and maybe at different times it got dark. You know, it came on the rise. It was just a lesser light. You know, or it could have been another moon as well. Who knows? Maybe Betelgeuse had its own moon. It just expanded, took the moons, the planets, and the other star, because it expanded from 6 million kilometers in diameter, 617 million. I mean, it's
Wow, that's
if you
100 times.
if you look in the book, the diameter the diameter goes all the way out to Jupiter. The orbit, or Jupiter's orbit is as big as the diameter of Betelgeuse, as big as the star. So you take the orbit of Jupiter in our solar system. That's how big the star is, and the star is actually bigger than that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a huge star, and and so it dimmed recently in 2020 and or 2019, I believe. It had like some call it a sneeze. Some suggest that it's outgassing. Some have suggested that it's now burning the helium, or it could be the beginning of a supernova expression where we don't have that much research on. I don't think we've ever. I don't think humanity's ever had telescopes of watching a star and then it suddenly popped. So we don't know what the stages are, what a star actually its symptoms are, but right before it goes supernova. You know.
Well, wow, that'll be, hopefully it happens. I mean, who knows, in our lifetime, I mean, but soon, so we could see what happens. What do you expect to happen?
If say I'd rather have it happen in wintertime, because then it'd be bright, nice bright moon, you know. Because if it happens, well, I guess because I think we see Orion during the day, and then Orion's on the other side during the night in the summertime. But in the wintertime, Orion is in the night sky in the summertime. I mean, the wintertime. I'd rather happen in the wintertime. It would be it'd be the brightness of a full moon within the first few couple days. The brightness, and I think it would last probably a month. It would be like a full moon, two full, and imagine a full moon along with the brightness of another full moon in the sky of Betelgeuse, that just is shimmering, two full moons at night, and you look up in the sky, it'd just be it would be lit up. It'd be really bright at night, you know. It'd be awe-inspiring. I think people would have a euphoric feeling, actually, a sense of like people would get spiritual. I think my book would sell. No, um, it'd be a very spiritual. It'd be a time of people would have reverence for the heavens and stars, and people would be going. People would start like getting out of themselves. I think, you know, they wouldn't be so. Maybe it would become a time of people would be like more brotherly and more kinder to each other, because in this they wake up out of themselves and see, oh, there's something else greater than us. You know, so many people caught up in themselves right now. It's like the me culture, the iPhone culture. Look at me, you know. Even I have that within myself. You know,
So
I
do
try
I.
not. I try to stay humble. You know.
It's not easy.
No.
And social media is like, it makes it really easy to not be humble. And when you see other people, it's like, oh, I might as well be like them too. But like,
I try to be empathetic and kind and listen to people and listen to everybody. And of course, if someone crosses you three times, or if they're sick or mentally ill, try to it just maybe stay away, because you can't help it. You just don't want to be endangering yourself. But try to help everybody as best you can.
yes, try to help everyone as best you can. And like you said, I think, going out at night, seeing the stars, seeing something like that would definitely be awe-inspiring and bring people into a sort of reality that the earth is very small, and we as human beings on the earth are even smaller. So there's something pretty big going on out there, and to some degree it's a little scary.
Yes, the universe is incredibly huge. And so it'll wake people up out of themselves, get them more into maybe a brotherly spirit. Might even like it'll get people into like being kinder, and it might be get people draw people to get closer to each other. That's what I see would happen. But you're right. It if you think about the size of the universe, we're talking it's not just 13.8 billion light years. I've heard it's like somewhere between uh, it's like 195 light years that they've estimated, and the universe is. They say the envelope of the universe is infinitely expanding. It's always expanding. Not there's a finite amount of matter, but the envelope is expanding as the stars are redshifting and the constellations are redshifting outwards from the cosmological Big Bang, in which I believe that information and mathematical equations are the backbone of the universe. And with this Big Bang that we started out from, if you take it even back to before that, there was a void. And I've even researched the void. The void is nothingness. But the void was not nothingness, believe it or not. The void actually has information. And so be comforted that the fact that the void, which is complete nothingness, a void is nothingness, but it takes information for a void. So there's no such thing as nothingness. With information, that means there's an intelligent design. There is a fact that God exists. It's I just prove it through science. There's the Bible, and that's proof. There was Jesus, that's proof. For me, anyway. Everybody has their own belief systems. For me, it's Jesus. There's the Bible, and then there's the fact through science. For me, and He's the Almighty, and I praise Him. I love Him, and I'm glad He's here. That's my comfort, because if I didn't have that, and this was just some random entropy engine that we live in, some machine that we live in, it'd be pretty sad. Then it's like a free for all, and I don't believe that. And then what was all this empathy and compassion for? We have to
That is
have that.
that is a care that is a really precarious way of thinking about it. An entropy engine, that is, versus the idea of empathy and compassion, and there's being purpose. But people have their own beliefs. Some people do believe it's an entropy engine, and they live according to that. And that is a really interesting way of bringing about science and God, saying in order for there to, before the Big Bang, there had to be information in place. So the void was not actually nothing, because in order to create the Big Bang, you need information. When you say information, I'm thinking of code. Is that how you're thinking about it?
Definitely, I actually wrote a program. When you come over, I'll show you the program. There's bits. A bit is the tiniest form of information that man knows about. A bit is one out of a byte. Eight bits equals a byte. There was information that constructed the void, believe it or not. and then the energy that was inputted into the prior to the Big Bang, I'm assuming it was probably hydrogen, water. No, water. Believe it or not, God just like threw in some water, because this is all the cosmological religious aspects. If you take Hinduism or any religion, they always talk about water first, and then there's this explosion, and it starts, and a lot of physicists have looked at the cloud, the cove, the first image of light that actually expressed itself from the Big Bang. They say it started out as order, and chaos or um, uh, entropy has something to do with order. There's order, and then it goes as the energy is dispersed, it kind of goes to chaos. Like when the universe dies, if there's no if God doesn't intervene, um, then it'll be a cold spell. The universe will just die in a cold snap, or it will collapse in on itself. I think it's probably going to go into a cold. The universe will die of a cold snap some, billions of years from now, and because the energy is constantly dispersing. I can't think of any other system that you can create, because you kind of want a system that you have death built into it, a dispersion. Because think about it. What if you were a being that has nerves on your endings of your hands, but you didn't have entropy and you got caught in something? You'd have to be a super being to push yourself out of that. If you didn't die, or if you're caught in something trapped for eternity. So entropy disperses the energy as we go along. Everybody's dispersing energy. We're taking energy in, it's dispersing out of us. That's entropy.
So I guess, what do you mean by when you have your hand caught and you need entropy to get it out?
Oh, I didn't mean a hand caught. I'm just saying, what if we weren't in this current system that we're in, where entropy exists? Like, is there a system known? Like, is heaven like a system without entropy? Or
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a real deep question.
That is a very deep question.
I've actually thought about that. I'm going, how do you create it? That's up to God. He's infinite. How do you create a system like that? I can kind of comprehend why the system exists, why we have entropy right now, is because, like I said, I'm not I'm not Superman. I can't get stuck somewhere. If I was just a man, I'd be stuck somewhere if I didn't have entropy. If I didn't die, you say those people that are caught under the rubble at the Florida Towers.
Yes.
And they live forever. Who'd want to live forever under a rubble? Pile of rubble.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yes. And that's why you believe entropy is introduced in where its place is?
Entropy is just part of this whole system. Entropy is just part of this whole system that we live in. The whole universe is just an entropy engine, but it's not an entropy engine. It is an entropy engine, but we have our spirituality into the matter, where God has come in, and we die and we go somewhere else, and there's a reckoning, I believe, and whether now there's the people who believe in reincarnation. Maybe there's another place like heaven, or maybe this place is going to be turned into a heaven. Who knows? Oh boy.
It's who knows? I mean, there's a lot of different signs in different places, and it's hard to tell what is being told to us and what's going on around us, especially when we kind of are a little susceptible to being blind and leaving blind spots and avoiding, looking at those blind spots because we feel that they're uncomfortable to look at.
Oh yeah, it's like when you discuss things that are very intricate or complicated, it can upset the balance, or it may cause anxiety because you don't want to look at that, because we're just human beings trying to navigate a world, go to our job and our daily monotony of our routine lives, and then start discussing all these things. Gets you going wondering.
Yes. So then so you think 3 million years ago, the star expanded to the point where life on Eden had to leave?
Yes. What's interesting is 3.2 million years ago, they found bones of a close hominid ape. They call her Lucy, in Africa. I don't know if you've heard of this.
I've heard of Lucy.
Yeah, in Africa. And 3.2 to 4 million years ago, I've calculated through some scientific facts regarding Betelgeuse that the star had to start expanding. And if a star expands, and if there's a planet like Eden, which is in the habitable zone, which I believe there was, according to my book, that if it had polar ice caps, then if a star begins to expand and heat up, then that planet's ice caps will melt, therefore cause a flood. And Eden already had a lot of water on it. It was according to the Bible, water everywhere. And so if it had polar ice caps, which I surmise it did, that would have melted and flooded due to the expansion of the star 3.2 to 4 million years ago.
Okay.
Which relates to Lucy, where they found Lucy 3.2 million years ago.
And she was a hominid. She wasn't a Homo sapien.
Right. But
God.
But who knows? Maybe, possibly, like I said, we were biologically engineered from apes or from very close beings that are crossed us genetically.
What's the reason you feel we were bioengineered? And what do you mean by bioengineered?
That our genetic lineage in a human being, people say we evolved from apes. A lot of scientists believe that. And then the creationists believe we came from Adam and Eve. And so I've looked at the Bible scripture and it says, let us create man. And then in this cuneiform scripture, which is the oldest writing, said Enki and his sister created man as a helper, as a slave, actually. And so I surmise that since we are fallen, according to the Bible, that the story is not complete. That because we have hair on our bodies, but we also have skin and an intellect and a lot of compassion. But I don't think mankind, the hair, I have a lot of hair. Some people have hair, and some people have less hair. But I believe that this hair comes from apes. It's that the genetics we have, we're part ape, we're part angel, is what I'm saying. We were biologically engineered. And we have the matter of the clay. We're not, and so we're almost sentient, angelic like, but we're also animal. That's what I feel now. It's like, it's amazing to think this way, because, and then there's the fallen aspect, and then there's that test and everything, because I have a hard time thinking that God would single-handedly create Adam and Eve and then put a tree in the middle of the garden and just have that one tree and they eat an apple, and then it's like you're fallen, and just you ate the apple, and if you think about it, Adam, if it was just the tree, his mate ate the apple and then he ate too. It's like, I think there was more to it. I think yeah. And the reason why I feel that story is valid is because, like I said, scientifically, this universe had to be created by a God, and there's a God that exists. So, and then there's this whole Orion thing, in this book, which I wrote, and in the megalithic structures. But I'm not a biologist, but I'm making these. This is an assumption of mine, and it's what I see from the calculations in that pyramid points to Betelgeuse and the Orion, and then these megalithic structures, and then what I've seen.
And so Betelgeuse and Orion, the belt, are disproportionately referenced in these megalithic structures. There aren't other constellations that are obsessed about with pyramids or ancient architecture. It's mostly just headed towards or depicting Orion and that constellation.
It looks to me that what's involved with these megalithic equinoxes, like the solstices and the equinoxes, is that Sun is involved, Orion is involved, and the Serpents constellation is involved. The Serpents is a snake representing the fall of man in the Garden of Eden. The Orion constellation, Betelgeuse, is in the shoulder of the constellation Orion, is the home star system where planet Eden was. It is referenced in the midday sky and mid-heavens. Mid-heavens, I mean, it's about 12 o'clock. It's just right above these megalithic structures. There's only one instance in my book where it's not mid-heavens. It just happens to be rising when the sun is rising with the heel stone, which is very
At
ironic.
Stonehenge?
Yeah, heel is spelled Heel, heel stone. And it's the heel stone at Stonehenge. And then while that sun is beamed in the middle point of Stonehenge, Orion is rising while the sun is rising at 4:30 a.m. and in Wales, England, and in Europe. And it's beamed right at the middle of Stonehenge, the heel stone. So what happened in there's scripture in the Bible that says, and Eve's kids will bruise the head of the serpent, or the serpent will bruise the heel of the lineage of Eve's kids. It's in the Bible, the scripture. And so at the same time, while that sun is beamed in the middle of Stonehenge at the heel stone with Orion rising, Serpent Mound, which is about, I don't know, 300 meters long with a serpent, and then it looks like it's gobbling up a planet, like I think it's Eden. The Serpent's constellation, which is a snake, is just above at, I think, 11:45 in the morning, or at night, 11:45 at night on the 20th, and then on the 21st, the summer solstice in June at 4:35, that heel stone is being sunned there. So it's like there's a connection with the Serpent, Orion, Betelgeuse, at Göbekli Tepe. It's that at Stonehenge, at the Serpent Mound in Ohio, at the Mayan temple at Chichen Itza. There's the Great Pyramid. There's am I missing something? But it's just amazing, that calculation as well. I'm just like, well, why is Orion getting all its attention? You know, so I put forward this theory of mine that we are not from this planet.
What makes you believe that these megalithic structures were built 10,500 years ago?
These researchers named Boval and Hancock have used astronomical alignments with the computers over the Giza pyramids that Leo, the constellation Leo, was rising with the Sphinx over the east at a specific alignment at 10,500 BC, and then the shafts from the Giza pyramids are perfectly aligned with the Orion's belt. The king's shaft from the king's chamber within the Great Pyramid goes about 45 degrees up, and it hits the Orion's belt. And the Giza at 10,500 BC, at the same time in the morning, or at night, I should say, when the stars are out, Leo at 10,500 BC is showing, and Leo looks like a sphinx or whatever. It looks like a lion. Leo is aligned with the Sphinx at 10,500 BC, as well as the Great Pyramids aligned at 10,500 BC. And then they showed other alignments in Angkor Wat that Draco was aligned at 10,500 BC. So I firmly believe that these, not only that the Great Pyramid is made so that it fits on most of the landmass on the planet, and it's polar north or magnetic north, it's perfectly aligned. That there was a global scheme for all these, like the Mayan pyramids, the Giza pyramids, the Draco. I mean, not Draco, but Angkor Wat. These megalithic sites, not the Peruvian. Those statues, these big stone. I think it was all done at the same time in 10,500 BC. Now, Angkor Wat, they say, was done at 1200 AD, but I think there's some other buildings there that was probably done at 10,500 BC. So I don't know. I think Angkor Wat, if they say it was 1200, I'll stick to that one. But which is ironic because it still has a autumn equinox, which has the sun over the the main tower, which does have an
Yes,
aura.
that one is unique in regards to when historians believe it was built. 1200 AD is pretty recent for a megalithic structure.
I agree, and there's been arguments of people saying maybe a different time I've seen online, but I don't know. I wasn't there. You know.
When you say the Great Pyramid was built on the largest land mass, what do you mean by that?
Okay, so say you have a square. I mean, say the largest landmass. That is kind of hard for me to describe. There's a theory, or there's a stated fact that it is centered where if you draw out lines across that the pyramid is put where it's hard for me to describe, but it's strategically placed where it meets with most of the landmass. I don't know how any other way to put
Oh,
it.
I understand that that's the center of the world. Like from that point, it could reach the most amount of land because it can go into Europe, into Asia, into Africa.
Yeah, if you put lines all over the globe or something like that, that it's centered. It's really it's like centered on the most landmass on the planet. If you were to put an object somewhere, it covers the most landmass. So I'm like, yeah, I guess that's right.
That makes sense. Okay. Wow. So is Jerusalem too. Jerusalem's right there. It's pretty much in the center.
Egypt is it's a pretty wealthy country back in the day. It's a very, breadbasket,
Yeah, it was
Nile.
very rich for most of the ancient times, the richest country. Maybe that isn't, maybe the pyramids came first and then the wealth came second, instead of, people believing that the wealth came first and then they were able to build these megalithic structures through that wealth.
Yeah, I happen to think that the Egyptians inherited some of these pyramids, perhaps. Maybe they were built in 10,500 BC. They came along and then they put all their uh, their
Their own
hieroglyphics on.
hieroglyphs.
Yeah, I mean, some of these boxes in Sakura, they're so machined to precision, and then they look at the hieroglyphs. It looks like they don't match up with precision compared to the boxes, and they've seen evidence of that. And there's theories that some of the structures could have been there in place before, like an inheritance thing, you know.
Got it. And
I,
then Egyptians down throughout history created, added their own aspect of hieroglyphic to it that really have nothing to do with it.
yes, it's possible, you know. That's
I've heard that
speculation.
theory too. Yes. I mean, there's, a lot of it is speculation, but, it could be as true as anything.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And that those three pyramids, I'd love to visit them. Imagine just seeing them up close. You'd just be blown away. And if you saw some of the stuff with your own eyes, you'd probably start thinking, some of these engineers that go there, I've heard like scientists and engineers who've been in the machining or lathe, who've worked with the aerospace industry that have to design like Christopher Dunn or other engineers. And when they say, "Where are the tools that made these?" and then some of the Egyptologists or the curators show them the crude copper tools, they go, "No way." And I've heard Christopher Dunn say that. He said that a lot of the engineers would say they shake their heads. It was never done with these crude copper tools, because the crude copper tools would just mush up on them. You know they're too malleable. The metal.
It's not
Now
strong
these
enough.
Yeah, they were cut with diamond lasers and anti-gravity devices to move this stuff, and lathes, the giant lathe machines, But when these extraterrestrials said, "Oh, I can't deal with these hominid ape men people that we brought here trying to show them how to do this," They up and took all their tools after they built that. Maybe they had used the humans for slave labor to build some of this stuff. They up and took all their tools and split. That's what I think. You know.
Wow. And you think that they're still in the surrounding area?
Yeah, I think they're monitoring us now. Yeah.
What's the reason you think that?
Well, I think some of it they continue to work with the highest upper echelons of our technicians, and some of the technology that's been passed down is still going on. Like we have these leaps of technological advancements. Like I think at Holloman Air Force Base, Eisenhower there was this instance where they say he might have met with aliens, and that they wanted to have a base here somewhere that's hidden. And there's always this Antarctica thing that who knows, they could be hanging out there too. But they may have somewhere that they're hiding out, or they have a connection, but they're not going to connect. They're not going to go global, because I think they're using some of the people who I say are genetically engineered as abductions for medical experiments for their own reasons. I have no, for the advanced technology. If they're abducting us for medical experiments, who's to say that they didn't help bioengineer us a long time ago from apes? Because I hear abductions all the time, throughout history. So if they're abducting us for medical experiments, well, it's quite possible they could have bioengineered us a long time ago. The fall man, you know. Yeah.
It's have you heard of abductions recently, or is that throughout history you mean?
Well, I have a special story myself. It's in the book. I was in bed with my wife. She was asleep, and I had what I call a subconscious abduction. Now, this happened. I woke up at about 5:30 in January in 2012, which is kind of ironic because 2012 was supposed to be the year of conscious awakening, or 2012 was the Mayan Armageddon, so to speak. I woke up in January 7th at 5:30 a.m. out of a nightmare. I screamed because vividly 3 grays entered my room, and and I can still see the dream today, and I wrote about it. It's in the book. One was over my heart with some kind of weird medical device, and one was over my head like they were doing telepathic, was about to do something, and it scared the hell out of me. And so I call that a subliminal subconscious abduction, where they could have remotely were abducting me. I think it was remote abduction, if that's possible. See, again, we're like dogs and they're like Einsteins. Who knows what this 5G stuff is hanging out from all these towers. They say it's just this microwave. Why do we need these microwave 5G towers to transmit into our homes? And I've even went online and I have histamine rashes on me. And these 5G towers, we don't need them. 4G is plenty. If we have towers at every 500 meters, we don't need these 5G towers. They just want to set up a new society where everything's run off of 5G. I I just went off topic. Excuse me, Koresh. But yeah,
What's the reason you're not a fan of 5G?
I don't think it's healthy for us biologically. I think it's heating up our bodies. Some people now think that they've just entered the conspiracy zone but I've heard online just recently that there's I don't know if you've ever just hit YouTube and look at all the videos. Now the big thing is histamine. I've seen it in my feed. There's histamine levels. And I noticed that I get histamine rashes. I don't know if you get a histamine rash sometimes, like a little allergic skin rash where you get red bumps on your skin. Maybe you're not old enough to get it yet. But the histamine builds up. But EMF, I've been around a lot of EMF in my life because I was a network engineer and computer engineer. And so if you have too much electromagnetic frequencies, it can vibrate too much and create like higher levels of histamine in your body. I just don't think we need this much radio frequencies in affecting us. I think we
There
should.
is,
I think we should kind of stop at a certain level and not use a higher frequency. Because it's radiation.
you're not alone in that, way of thought, thinking that, too much radiation, technologies that use more radiation are possibly self-deprecating. Wow.
Yeah.
So, do you think that then, what do you think there's left to do for humanity?
Oh, that's a big question. Well, supposedly, if the aliens have dropped us off here, that's a good question. And what's the goal if they're passing on technology? If we're their creation, the fallen creation, and we have the Jesus thing, and he's the savior, I think the final battle is going to occur here between, we have the fallen, and then we have the believers. It's all coming to a head. Do I think that they will transport us? It could be going on right now. They may be taking some of these abductions. They could be transporting humans to other planets that are viable in the Milky Way galaxy. That could be going on already. What is the future for mankind? Well, Elon Musk, I don't like that guy. I don't know why. These guys like Bezos, they avoid taxes, and they've got billions of dollars. I'm not into like putting a microchip into my head and going that far. I think I'll keep all the technology where it's at my fingertips. I don't care if I can only do 8 bits per second. I don't need to have an interface where I'm downloading like in the Matrix. I go at my own speed. But the future, huh? Where is the future? The future is moving along. Sadly, global climate change, we have got too much carbon dioxide and nitrogen going into the atmosphere. Things are heating up. We've got a heat dome over the northwest. 120 degrees was in Canada. There's pollution. Our pollution is out of control in the ocean. Plastics, all this, we keep using plastic and dumping it into the trash. We got these trash mountains just piling up outside of cities. Doesn't look good for the next generations of kids because nature is being hit hard and animals. We can't just go to another planet and do the same thing. We've got to really watch how we utilize energy, clean energy like solar, wind, ocean power, but maybe the extraterrestrials had it right to begin with. The pyramid was a free energy device. Did it impact anything? No, it was free energy. It was a pyramid that produced 2,000. You know how much 2,000 megawatts can? I went and looked online. 2,000 megawatts can supply the Los Angeles with all the electricity for a day worth of energy. So a
Wow.
pyramid with free energy. So they had a free energy device that was clean from electricity, and then there was evidence of solar power back then too. So if you had pyramids everywhere, you had free energy, and you don't even need a nuclear reactor that could possibly blow up and destroy the environment as well. So a pyramid is awesome. You build pyramids everywhere, but look how much effort it takes to build a pyramid, to make a free energy device. It took a lot, but it's out there. The technology's out there. It's just they have it. We don't.
How do you think we would derive energy from a pyramid?
The pyramid has these blocks. It's piezoelectric, and there's a vortex. So inside my book, it has a link. If you get the ebook, you click on the it explains it thoroughly how pyramids create free energy. How in the link, let me see. I'll go. Well, it's a piezoelectric device from pressure, but there's a vortex. If you take a Leighton jar is I can't really describe it, but what I know is that the pressure from the blocks and there's a paper in the book that shows how it produces electricity. Pyramids are
Okay.
known. It's kind of a known fact that pyramids can create free energy, and there's peer-reviewed uh, resources out there on the internet that shows how it's done. Yeah,
I'll
I'm not an engineer that would know the specifics, but I know piezoelectric through weight and the rose quartz has a tremendous amount of weight on it, you know.
And that's within the pyramid, the rose quartz?
Yes.
Okay. I'll have to reference back to your book and check out that link.
But Christopher Dunn, if you, I'll be a plug for Christopher Dunn. Christopher Dunn goes to Giza power plant, and within the book, it'll dispel how it's done, that the power plant could have existed. But there's also, in my book, there's a link that shows how a pyramid creates free energy, and it even suggests that the pyramid can create megawatts of electricity the size of the Khufu pyramid, which which I decoded, which would be 2,000 megawatts, which would size of LA per day.
That's
It's
a lot of
amazing.
energy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then if you look in the dendrolite on that relief, it shows that they're using a dielectric capacitor on the wall, and inside of our transformers, there are dielectric capacitors, or within the poles, they have these they're little lips with circles on them, and they go up, and it's on the relief wall, but we use them every day in our modern technology. Yeah, so
It's
electricity. What?
it's wild to think that those, that electricity and electrical components were being used and being thought of that long ago. It's hard for some people to fathom at all.
Yeah, I think there were cords that were running on the outside of it. They were stripped. Everything was stripped. The tools, everything was stripped and taken away by these extraterrestrials. They're light years advanced. They knew how to strip it, take it away, build it, do everything.
You think there
Uh,
were cords?
I think there were probably cords that were running down the center. They might have used fluid. There, in the book, and Christopher Dunn, he says that there's hydrochloric acid. There's acid bays that were going down some of the channels, not the channels, but the shafts. And the Queen's Chamber down at the bottom would have been an acid bath. They've looked at it and saw some acidic burn marks on the roofing of the Queen's Chamber down at the very bottom. And
Like a battery.
yeah, like a battery. Yeah. And there's two cables in one of the shafts that have looks like cables, on your battery on your car. They're electrodes. Looks like two electrodes in the shaft. They had the Gatterbrink camera even take a picture of them. You can see that online.
The Giza power plant?
Yeah, that's a book by Christopher Dunn. It's amazing. He's a machinist for 50 years and working with NASA. So he knows about tools and what
About
it
large
takes,
tech, yeah, what it takes to make these huge
artifacts.
machines.
Artifacts, yeah, and yeah, he knows a lot about the technology. So
Wow. I'll have to check out his book then and check out what he has online.
hmm
Well, Tom, thank you for coming on the podcast. Are there any last words that you'd like to say to the audience or you'd like to say in general?
thank you, Karush, and thank you all for listening. It's been a pleasure. I Remember, this is just a theory. I put it out there because of the calculation within the Khufu Great Pyramid. I found that calculation of Betelgeuse, and within the megalithic alignments of Orion, which I found across the globe and the planet, there's definitely a message coming to us, and not only from the high technology that is found in Egypt. There's something more going on, and there's an extraterrestrial involvement with humankind, and that's what I'd like to leave it. So thank you very much. You all have a great day or evening from wherever you're watching this. It's been a pleasure. Bye-bye.
It's been a pleasure. Bye, Tom.
See you all later.